Hello everyone, and welcome back to our latest episode of An American in Thailand. We air this program every Friday, and it's broadcast to you from Ratchamakan University of Technology, Peranakan. This program will come to you in two parts. For the first part, I will be introducing a certain topic about being an American living here in Thailand. Maybe it'll be about food, or travel, or culture. We'll then take a little break, and when we come back for the second part of the program, we will get into more examples and more specifics, more details about some of those issues. Obviously, since it's in more detail, we won't cover all of the issues, but some of the more important issues we will get into more specifics. Then we'll have the news and the latest updates from the university as usual. Welcome everyone, my name is Gary Gray, and I am your host for An American in Thailand. I am, of course, an American, and I have been living here in Thailand for about 8 years, a little less than 8 years, but about 8 years. I'm an English teacher here at Ratchamakan University of Technology, Peranakan. And for today's episode, we're going to do something a little bit interesting. We're kind of going to go backwards. And what I mean by that is, instead of me being an American living here in Thailand, one thing I've learned living here and teaching my students is that a lot of my students talk about wanting to move to America. So, this topic is going to be about why you should not move to America. Now, let me be clear in my introduction here that I'm not saying that you should not move to America. There are actually some very good reasons that you may want to move to America. But the reason I'm going to focus a little bit more on why not to move to America is it seems like most people here in Thailand already understand most of the good reasons to move to America. And they may not realize some of the bad reasons. So, or reasons not to move to America, I should say, since they're bad reasons. So they may not understand some of the reasons not to move to America. So we're going to focus a little bit more on that. But again, it's not intended to mean that you should not move to America. I currently have about maybe 5 students that I've taught who are living in America. They all seem to enjoy it. America is a big country. Lots of cool places to go see, to visit. Very diverse. Very nice country. It's not as hot as Thailand either, really. Most of the country. You get to southern parts of the country. Even there in the winter, it's usually colder than Thailand. But during the summer, it can be as hot as Thailand in some parts of the south. So still pretty hot in some areas, like if you're in Florida or Texas or the Southwest, it can get pretty hot. But generally, it's not as hot as Thailand. So lots of good reasons to go to America. Lots of good reasons. So again, the reason I want to focus on the bad things, the reasons not to move to Thailand, is because from what I hear from my students, most of them understand the good things. And you know, it's natural for people to focus on the good things. You don't want to think about the bad things. So you focus on the good things. That's normal. But because of that, maybe you go to America and there are bad things that you were not really expecting because you didn't really think about them. So I just want to give kind of a balanced picture. So even though I'm focusing on the bad things, I'm not trying to say it's bad. Even though I live here in Thailand and I actually prefer Thailand, that's what last week's episode was about. We talked about why I moved to Thailand, and I actually do prefer the culture here. So I do love Thailand, but I do still love my home country. America is a great place. I'm very patriotic. I'm still an American citizen, even though I live here. I'm still required to file taxes. I don't pay any taxes because I don't make enough money, but I have to file the taxes. I still file taxes every year, and if I did make enough money, I would still pay taxes, and so I'm still allowed to vote. So I'm still involved in politics in America. My friends that know me here in Thailand know that I'm very involved in politics, so I have very strong opinions. So I'm still a good patriotic American. I just prefer living here in Thailand for the culture. So America is a good place. I'm not trying to tell you it's not a good place. But I do want to talk in this episode about some things that may not be good that some people don't really think about. So first of all, why do a lot of Thai people want to move to America? I told you I have several students that are in America. I have a friend whose husband is Thai, and he's moved to America and runs a Thai restaurant there. So I have another Thai friend, and I've kind of become friends with him. I'm not really close friends. I've only met him a few times through my friend. And like I said, he is my friend's husband. So I've only met him a few times, but we're kind of friends. He's a nice guy. I've met him enough to know that. So I have that friend who also is Thai and lives in America. I got this job here in Thailand from a friend who is Thai who was living in America. He has now since moved back here to Thailand, but he was living in America for several years. And at one point he wanted to go back to America. He did briefly, but now he's back here again. So I know he likes it there as well. There are things to like about America. So why do people want to move to America? One of the biggest reasons I hear is that you make more money. And we're going to talk about this more in the second part, about why that may not be as good as it sounds. Yes, it is good. We're going to go through some details in the second part of our program, where I will explain some of the costs to you and how much money you make and what the costs are. But there are problems with that logic, with thinking, oh, well, I'm going to make lots of money if I move to America. It's not entirely untrue. It's just maybe not as good as you think it is, okay? So I do want to talk about that issue more. That's going to be one of our biggest issues we talk about. All right, so another reason another reason you may want to go there is more opportunity. We have kind of a more diverse job sector, employment field, whatever you want to call it. For example, we have something called the service industry, and by service I don't mean like serving people like you might get in the hospitality industry, which is big here in Thailand. It's also big in America. We have a lot of tourism there as well. But what we mean by the service industry is where you are doing work like computer analyses and things like that. You're doing computer type work, and that's really big in America. In fact, I have mentioned on, I think I mentioned on my program last week that I used to be a scientist in America, and my work was computer programming, but in a scientific field, and that would be considered service. Providing a service, because it's not providing an actual product. I'm not making something and selling it. I'm doing something on a computer. I'm providing a service. So that's considered a service industry. And there's a lot more of that in America than there is here in Thailand. So there's just a lot more kind of different opportunities for jobs. There's also more opportunity for education if you're going there to increase your education. The schools here in Thailand, including the universities, which is what most people would do, they'd go there to maybe get an advanced degree or something like that in America. Since I'm teaching university students, they will have graduated here, so maybe they want to go to America for their master's degree or something like that. The education in America is better. Now, I'm not saying it's the best education in the world. It used to be, but we've kind of fallen behind a little bit. But it is better. And I'm not trying to, and that's not me being negative towards Thailand. It's just a matter of money. America's a wealthier country. They can spend more on education, so their education is better. It's just like the resources we have at our university here. Sometimes I'm teaching in a classroom that has no computer, no projector, no whiteboard, nothing. It's like, okay, how am I supposed to teach these students? We have nothing in this classroom. It's just because it's all just a money issue. So America has more money, so their universities are better outfitted, means they have more equipment, more supplies, more everything you need. And so the education you get there does tend to be better. So there are more educational opportunities there as well. So that's another good reason to go there. To advance your education and get a better education. In fact, my boss here at the university, she went to America to get her PhD in English. Okay, another good reason why you may want to move to America is that it's really a fun and interesting country in terms of the cultural mix. Excuse me. We have more cultures in America than really any other country in the world. A lot of Western countries are a little more open than some kind of Asian countries are. Like I was talking to some folks yesterday about buying property. You can't buy property here in Thailand if you're a foreigner. Now, I think they did maybe just change the law on that last year or 2 years ago. Maybe you can now. I'm not sure. I mean, you can buy a condo, but you can't buy like the actual land. And since you can't buy the land, you can't buy a house. So foreigners can't buy houses here in Thailand. In America, doesn't matter where you're from. If you're Thai, you move there, you want to buy a house, you have the money to buy the house, fine, you buy the house. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. And because we're more open towards foreigners coming in, not all the time. We're going to talk about that with related to politics on some of the negative sides. But generally, because we're open to people coming into the country, we have a lot of people from all over the world. And most Western cultures are like that. But I think America has probably drawn more of those than any other Western country in the world. I mean, Australia is kind of far away from Europe. I mean, obviously, they're most Australians who have lived there a long time are European because Britain settled it, so you have a lot of British people there. But as far as just normal immigration, a lot of it there is more Asian because that's what they're closer to. You get a lot of Asian immigrants there. Not a lot of African, not a lot of Middle Eastern, not a lot of South American. So there's not a lot of Spanish culture there. I mean, there are some of those, of course. You can find all of those there. It's a Western country. It's an open society. Yep, they have them all there. Just not as many. Europe, kind of the same thing, except they're going to have fewer Asians because they're kind of far away from Asia. Now, you could say, well, America's far away from all of those. Well, sort of. The West Coast isn't that far away from the East Coast of Asia. And in fact, in the western part of the U.S. is in fact where a lot of the Asians live. Now, of course, there are a lot in big cities as well. Like New York City has a huge Asian population as well. But but California has the most Asians. And then you go to the east side of America, and it's not that far from Europe, so you have an area where I grew up where we have a large population of Portuguese people. Well, Portugal is basically the furthest west European country, as long as you're not talking about places like Greenland or Iceland, but part of the European continent. Portugal's the furthest west one. So we've got a big Portuguese population where I grew up, which was on the east coast of America. You've also got a lot of people that come up from South America, so you get a lot of Spanish influence there as well. So it's just got a tremendous cultural mix, which is very interesting, and it can be really a lot of fun if you're a foodie, you're someone who really likes different kinds of food. I mean, you can find authentic food of any kind in America. Now, sometimes we do Americanize it. We especially have done that with Chinese food. There's a lot of Chinese restaurants that serve stuff that you would never find actually in China. But if you know where to look, like in New York City, for example, a lot of the Chinese restaurants are going to be authentic because there are a lot of Chinese people that live there. They want to go out, they want to have a dinner, go to a Chinese restaurant, so they're going to be very authentic. So if you know where to look, you can find authentic restaurants from almost any part of the world. African, Indian, Southeast Asian, Chinese, Japanese, European, whether it's Greek or Italian or Spanish or Portuguese. I mean, you can find anything in America, food-wise. So, yes, there are a lot of good reasons to go to America. So like I said, I'm not trying to tell you that you should not move to America. But there are some things that may be negative. And we're going to get into more details of this in the second part. But just briefly, you have the racial issue. Since you're listening to this here in Thailand, I'm assuming you are Thai. So, an Asian in America. America is... I mean, it depends on where you are. It depends on a lot of things. And most Americans are not racist. But if you were to look at a list of the most racist countries in the world, and how they judge this, I'm not really sure, but they do actually have listings of this. You can Google it. If you were to look at a listing of the most racist countries in the world, you will find that America is fairly high up on the list. You may be surprised to know that there is at least one Asian country on the list. South Korea is fairly high on the list. And I personally have been to South Korea, and I have experienced that. I have experienced racial discrimination in South Korea. I will not go back there. But America is also reasonably high on the list. I don't think we're at the top. Like I said, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Also, for weird reasons, which would take me the whole show to explain, so I'm not even going to try to explain it. For some reason, and I do understand why, but Asians in America are discriminated against a little bit less. Usually. Not true during COVID. Asian Americans were the target during COVID because it was viewed as the Chinese flu. And Americans are kind of stupid and can't tell the difference between different types of Asians. So any Asian is suddenly Chinese. So that's not always true. During COVID, it was worse. But generally, Asians are accepted a little bit more than some other racial minorities in America. Again, I'm not even going to explain why. There is a reason, but I'm not going to get into that. So that's one issue. The other issue, perhaps the biggest issue, is that it costs too much. And the reason I say that's the biggest issue is because one of the reasons people want to move there, one of the biggest reasons, is because they'll make more money. Yeah, you will. But what good is making more money if it's all gone? Because everything costs more. That is going to be the focus of the second part of our program. We'll get into more details about that. We are going to talk about a couple of other issues as well. But we're going to focus on cost mostly in the second part of our program. So let's take a brief break now, and then we will come back with the second part of our program in just a moment. Welcome back. Okay, so for today's episode, again, we're talking about why someone may not want to move to America. And actually, in the first part of our program, I gave you many reasons why someone would actually want to move to America. The reason is because there are a lot of good reasons. But the reason I want to focus on why you may not want to is because one of the main reasons I hear is about money. And it may not be as good as a lot of people think. So I just want people to have a balanced perspective. I'm not actually trying to convince anyone to not move to America. It is a wonderful place. As I mentioned in the first part of our program, I'm still a proud American. I'm a patriotic American. I'm an American citizen. I still pay my taxes or file my taxes. I don't usually owe anything, but I still file my taxes every year, and I would have to pay them if I made enough money. And I still vote. I'm still very politically active in America. Love my country. Even though I prefer Thai culture, which is why I moved here. We talked about that in our previous episode. So I'm not trying to say that you should not move to America. The reason I am focusing on the negative in this episode is because most of the people that I talk to here in Thailand that say they want to move to America only talk about the positive things. So I want to balance that out. So as we mentioned at the end of the first part of the program, I want to focus on cost here in the second part of our program. That really, to me, is the biggest issue that I think a lot of folks don't understand. Like they will talk about, ooh, yeah, I'm going to make so much more money when I move to America. Yes, you will. but you're going to spend a lot more money. Okay, so housing costs are probably the biggest one. Let me give you an example. My condo that I rent here in Bangkok costs me 11,000 baht a month. Okay? Costs me 11,000 baht a month. Now, in America, let's think about something comparable. Okay, so it would probably be New York City, since we're talking about the biggest city, Bangkok, New York City. But I don't live in the most expensive part of New York City, of Bangkok, because I live in Pinkau area. So in New York City, maybe you'd be talking about living in, I don't know, Brooklyn, Queens, something like that. A condo like mine in Brooklyn or Queens, I'm guessing, mind you, I haven't been in America for about 8 years, and costs have gone way up, so I am going to go high with this. But it's possible I'm not high enough, but it's also possible I may be going a little too high, but I'm probably kind of in the right area. A condo like I live in now, here in Bangkok, in a similar part of New York City, would probably cost about $2,000 a month. Now, okay, what is that in baht? That's going to be about 70,000 baht per month. 70,000 baht. I pay 11,000 baht now. That's more than 6 times as expensive. And my condo here is not very expensive. It's only 11,000. You go up to Sukhumvit or Siloam, the downtown area, you can't get something here for less than 25. But you do that in Manhattan, you'll be lucky if you find something less than $4,000 or $5,000 a month, which is 150,000 baht. In fact, the last place I rented before I moved here, it was a house, and the rent cost me, I was renting a house, the rent cost me about 175,000 baht every month. Now, mind you, I had a good job, made a lot of money. I had a partner who also made money, although sometimes because of the arrangement, I still had to pay the entire rent, which was not fun. That became a little tight. That was still a lot of money, even for me, even though I was making a lot of money. That's why when I moved to Thailand, I didn't have much savings because I was spending so much on that. Because that was pretty expensive. Even making a lot of money, that was still expensive. But it was a nice house, big house, had some land with it. So I mean, that is very high end. You're talking very high end at that point. So you don't have to pay 175,000 baht a month in rent if you move to America. No, that's not what I'm saying. But if you want a nice place or you want a convenient place, for example, the example I gave with about 70,000 baht a month, that's if you're living out in Brooklyn or Queens. And this is for a small condo, because that's what I have here in Bangkok, small condo. It's a nice condo. I'm talking about a relatively new one. Mine here is only a few years old. A lot of Brooklyn and Queens is pretty old, so you can maybe find something a little cheaper because the building is old. But I'm talking about kind of a comparable a comparable place to live in America is going to be about 6 times more. All right? And like I said, it can be a little bit more, a little bit less. So figure anywhere between 5 and 10 times more than what you're paying for housing here in Thailand. And housing is not just paying for your house, your condo, your apartment, wherever you're renting. You also have to pay the electric and the water. Well, in most of America, the water's included, so that's actually a good thing. So that's actually a little less. But the water bills here in Thailand are usually fairly cheap. But the electricity is also going to be more expensive in America. With one caveat, with one exception there. The exception is if you leave your air conditioner on all the time here in Thailand, which I mistakenly did when I moved here, because that's what you normally do in America. Which you don't do that here in Thailand. If you did that in Thailand, you would run up your electric bill pretty much, because I've seen it, because I did it by mistake here. You would run up your electric bill pretty much the same as it is in America. But we don't do that. And in America, you can leave your air conditioner on all day, and you'll still end up with that lower bill. So if you were to compare the same way we do it, the electric bills in America are about half of what they are here in Thailand. So that's even more money that you're going to have to spend for your housing. Right. Other costs are also higher. Food costs. Price of food in America. That's about 2 to 3 times higher. That will vary. That will vary some. And there is a limit on that, because it can only be just so much cheaper here in Thailand, because a lot of food actually does get imported from America, or things that you make the food from. For example, America produces a lot of wheat, so much that we actually export it. So there may be things made here in Thailand, like processed foods that you might buy at a supermarket, that actually use American products. And so there's a limit at how low the price of food can get here in Thailand. But just as an example, a restaurant near my house that I go to, near my condo here in Thailand that I go to, if I order my favorite dish, it's about 300 baht. That's pretty expensive here in Thailand for one dish. And if I get a second dish, which is basically a full meal at that point, it's about 450 baht, because the other dish is about 150, maybe a little lower than that. So that's about, 12, 13, probably closer to 13 US dollars. You cannot go to a restaurant, a sit-down restaurant, and eat for $13. You cannot. The least it's probably going to cost you, well, I shouldn't say you cannot. There are some places in parts of America where costs are lower, like maybe what we call a diner, which is kind of a cozy little, very relaxed atmosphere, informal place to eat. Especially if you're eating breakfast, you might be able to do that. Especially if you're out in the countryside, not in a city, you might be able to do that. But mostly, especially for a dinner, which is what I'm talking about, mostly you're not getting that for less than about $25. And that would still be a very cheap dinner. That's a very cheap dinner. You can spend hundreds of dollars on dinner in America. So you're talking about food costs being about 2 to 3 times higher in America. Transportation is also more expensive. Like you get a taxi. I just took a taxi here to my university this morning. Costs me about 65 baht. That is less than $2 in America. The meter is going to start at like $5 in America. It's going to start. You're not paying less than that. But again, it depends where you are exactly, but generally that's about where the meter starts, is at about $5. So again, transportation is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 times as much. So all of these costs are more expensive. But again, I'm not trying to just say everything's terrible, don't move to America. No, it's a good place to live. And not all expenses are worse. Not all of them are. Some costs are relatively lower. And what do I mean by that, by being relatively lower? Well, how much higher is your salary going to be? If I look at how much I make here in Thailand, and then I think about what I would make in America for doing the same job, it would probably be about 4 to 5 times higher. And that's including any extra work I get paid for here in Thailand. Like if I teach extra classes, they pay you a little extra money, things like that. That's including all of that. Based on all of that, how much do I make? If I were to do the math, I make about, with all of the extra work I do, I take that, it's probably about, I would probably make about 5 times more in America. Roughly. Could be even a little more than that, could be less than that. Well, let's go back and think about what I said. Housing costs are 5 to 10 times higher. Okay, so the housing probably is still going to be more expensive. That's still going to kill you a little bit because that's probably your biggest expense. But food costs being 2 to 3 times higher, well, you're making 5 times more money, so food relatively costs less. Transportation, about 2 to 5 times higher. Probably relatively less, although it could be close, depending on what type of transportation it is. But some things, like cars, they sell for almost the same price here in Thailand as they do in America. Well, then, based on your American salary, those are going to be way cheaper in America. Buying a car is much easier in America than it is here in Thailand. Much easier. So, not everything is worse. Housing, definitely worse. Another thing I didn't even put in my notes here, I have some notes in front of me to make sure I don't forget anything, is healthcare. Healthcare is going to be way more expensive in America. Even if you have a good job that gives you good insurance. I did. I had a great job, good insurance. But good insurance is not going to pay you 100% in America like it does here. Pay 100% of your medical. It'll pay 60, 70, 80, 90. Mine paid 80, or 90. I don't even remember. It was 80 or 90. It was pretty good. It was pretty high end. Mine paid 80 or 90. I got an operation. It was a pretty minor operation. Didn't even need to stay at the hospital overnight. They charge so much for health care in America that my bill, which was only 10 to 20% of the operation, minor operation, my bill that I got was $5,000. That's 175,000 baht that I had to pay. I have paid here in Thailand almost nothing for my medical expenses. Because I do have insurance through my job, but the insurance here pays 100%. So I've paid almost nothing. I do have to pay usually for pharmaceuticals. Even then, I don't have to pay for them if I'm at the hospital. If I go to the hospital for something and they need to give me medicine, nothing. Costs me nothing. But if I just go to the pharmacy, obviously I have no way of getting a discount at the pharmacy. So I do have to pay for my pharmaceuticals there. But healthcare is another one that's going to be way more expensive in America. So if you have health issues, you need to consider that. So the last thing I want to talk about, not related to cost, although that was our focus for this second part. I do want to make one last point here before we finish up, and that's about political sensitivities. Like right now, America is very sensitive to immigration under the current administration. I don't know if they'll replay this program in the future or if you'll listen to it on YouTube sometime in the future, but this program is being recorded in 2025, and America is very sensitive to immigration. In fact, if you even just say the wrong thing, they might deport you. They tried to do that. They shouldn't. It's not really legal, and in fact, the court system stopped them from doing this. But they might try, and they might get you arrested. They tried to do this with a Tufts University student. She wrote an article in her university paper. That's it, just a small little publication that the university does. She wrote an article in her paper which was supporting the cause of the Palestinians. And because the U.S. government does not agree with that position, they tried to arrest her and deport her. Now, I know you might think, hey, doesn't America have freedom of speech? Yes, we do. But who gives you that freedom of speech? The government does. So if the government wants to violate it, they can certainly try to. Now, the courts have stopped them, so they may not get away with it, but they can certainly try to. And so it's very sensitive right now. So right now may not be the best time to move to America. There was another issue where they deported a wrong person to a wrong country, and just today, as I'm recording this, the court said they had to bring that person back because the government said, oh, well, we have no way to bring them back. Sorry. They even admitted they made a mistake, and they're like, oh, well, too bad. Yeah, it's just amazing. It's amazing what's happening now. Now, again, the courts did protect him. Courts said bring that person back. So, it's not completely crazy. We do have the courts trying to keep the government in line, but it's a little bit dangerous right now to be an immigrant in America. So just be aware of that. Okay, so just in closing here, again, as I've said a couple of times, I'm really not trying to deter anyone who is determined to go to America. It is a wonderful country. In the first part of our program, I told you all the wonderful things about it. More opportunity, you're going to make more money, you get better education. The cultural diversity there is really fun and interesting. It's a great place to go. The environment there also, like nature, lots of diverse nature there as well. So it is a wonderful country. Education, opportunity, salaries, they're all strong. And then you have the cultural diversity that exists, which is in all English-speaking countries, really, but it's probably most diverse and interesting in America. So many good reasons to go there. The only reason I focus on the negative today is because those people that want to go there seem to only focus on the positive. So I just want to balance things. I just want you to be aware that it's not all good. Politics or racism can make it difficult sometimes. Also, even though you'll make a lot more money, you're also going to spend a lot more money. So just make sure you look at both sides before you decide to move to America. Make sure you look at both sides of the both the positive and the negative about what's going to happen when you get to America. Okay. Thank you for joining us for an American in Thailand program. Please stay with us and tune back in next week for another interesting episode. And please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.